It's the year of our Lord 2025, and the internet still can't seem to handle when a female character has any sort of nuance in their story. When a female character plans everything correctly and has everything go her way, she's obviously seen as a Mary Sue. But if she has any sort of human emotion or experiences any remorse or regret or makes a decision that isn't the best, she's automatically regarded as the worst person in existence. And no other character embodies that sentiment more than Avatar Korra, the subject of today's video. As a fair bit of warning, I don't really want to go too much into the story of Korra. I probably will touch some important parts about the story, but regardless, beware, there may be spoilers ahead. I'm Ayasuna and I make videos, more specifically art videos. And today I'm bringing up the topic of female protagonists as it's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. I'm in the process of coming up with a webtoon that has not one, but two female protagonists. And like I said, it's 2025, it really shouldn't be hard to write female characters in a way that's believable and understandable, which is why I kinda wanted to make this a video today. Part of expanding media literacy is to understand why female characters are portrayed a certain way in media, as it is important. Because whether or not we want to believe it, a lot of the media that we consume says a lot about the society at a given point in time. I've said it once, I'll say it again, we should be able to break down our favorite series and understand them for what they truly are. But that's for another video. So for those who don't know, about a week or so ago, the Avatar team on Facebook of all places announced pretty much the plot of the next Avatar series after Korra, appropriately titled Avatar 7 Havens. The basic plot of Seven Havens is that it's set in a world after a cataclysmic event. Pretty much an earthbender girl discovers she's the new Avatar after Korra, but unlike in other previous editions of Avatar, the Avatar is seen as a destroyer and not the world's savior. And while it's not explicitly on the text here, which I'll likely have on screen, the actions that Korra took at the end of her series led to the events that is going on in the new series. And boy, did the internet have a real strong reaction to this news. When it seems like hate for Korra was pretty much winding down other than like a few people. I mean, the finale of Legend of Korra was already 10 years ago, which is really making me feel old. Regardless, news of the new series that's going to come out soon definitely made people talk about Korra yet again, and unsurprisingly, there's a lot of people who still don't like her character. While I'm not particularly a fan of stan culture in any form, even for fandoms that I do generally enjoy, I think part of the hate for Korra is part of the internet culture these days. I think Korra as a character is probably one of the larger reasons and the start of why there's so much discourse around female characters to begin with, especially among contemporary protagonists. And I think the other part of the hate that Korra receives is mainly because of nostalgia. She's not Aang. And I get it, nostalgia is definitely a powerful factor for a lot of fans. I myself practically grew up with the original series. It's one of the reasons why I decided to become an artist in the first place. And if you're like me and grew up with the series as a kid, you definitely tried to waterbend in the shower or swimming pool at some point. I thought that if you could run around in a circle fast enough, you would actually make a tornado. I wasn't very bright as a kid. Don't try this at home, it only really made me super dizzy. Nostalgia aside, I'm not going to pretend that Korra was the perfect story. It almost certainly wasn't. One of my biggest gripes about the series is the forced romance plots, and yes, that goes for both Makora and Kurosami, as well as wanting the villains to be fleshed out a lot more when it comes to the story and overall plot. Over the course of the past few rewatches I've done of both series, I have a take that's probably going to get me quite a few dislikes, and probably an angry comment or two. But overall, I actually think that Korra was the better protagonist than Aang. And during my last Legend of Korra rewatch, I actually stand by this take. And don't get me wrong, I still like Aang as a character. I'm not one of these people just because I said I like French toast means I hate waffles and pancakes. But you can't also lie and say that the original Avatar series wasn't heavily carried by side characters. When you have characters like Zuko or Iroh or Toph or Sokka, Aang by himself can seem a little bit bland in some parts of the story. Again, I don't think he's a bad character, but with an all-star cast like that, he doesn't stand out as much. But to be fair on Aang's side, in the main original series, I'm not talking about the comics here, we only really know Aang for like a year. Korra's story takes place over several years, and we get to see how she pretty much deals with different circumstances and villains. While like I said, the villains was a weak part of the series, seeing how she dealt with the hardship left behind from these villains was an interesting part of her character. And I also think that a lot of the hate that Korra gets is simply because her character is misunderstood. Because even in 2025, we still have to deal with the double standard in both real life and in fiction that if a woman is straightforward and confident, she's automatically seen as rude and bossy, yet a man with similar traits are seen as confident leaders. Korra as a character is actually pretty similar to a lot of shonen protagonists, in the sense that her confidence and overall arrogance is more of a mask, mainly to hide her own insecurities about herself and her abilities. This is apparent in as early as Season 1. Despite her fiery, outgoing, bold persona, on the inside she's quite insecure. After finding out that she was the Avatar, she was pretty much sheltered away for much of her life. Who knows what would have happened in the story if she chose not to sneak away in the first place? Is it particularly Korra's fault that she wasn't really given knowledge of the outside world prior to her Tenzin coming? Is she really at fault for not being able to understand the plight of the common person if she hasn't exactly been around normal people? She didn't even know why she was in that compound until the third season of her show. She already knew that she was the Avatar at that point, so keeping that from her really didn't seem to make much of a difference anyways. From her going to relative isolation to being able to solve all of the world's problems at once is highly unrealistic. Even Aang struggled with it after his 100-year coma in the iceberg. So it really doesn't make sense to hold Korra to a different standard when we compare it to that. You know, it's interesting. Around the time that I rewatched Korra, I had also watched Clone Wars for the first time, at least in chronological order. And minus the youngling slaying, I say that there's plenty of similarities between Anakin and Korra's character. Both were raised in a relatively isolated setting. Because of their naivety of dealing with the wider world, they both got groomed by politicians that turned out to be evil. Both are known for their relatively reckless behavior and distrust of authority. Both have had pretty vivid nightmares about previous situations that they've been in or stuff that is bound to happen. And the similarities don't stop there either. All of that to say is that both of them are chosen ones who have had actions that led to cataclysmic events. They even both fight big floaty gods and have rich wifeys. But while one character is praised for their unorthodox thinking, the other one is demonized for any decision that they make. Anakin's impulsivity is seen as a gift, at least in the context of the Clone Wars. While in Korra, it must mean that she's the weakest avatar out of all of them, and is a constant screw-up. While I definitely had moments where I was frustrated with Korra as a character, mainly dealing with those romantic subplots that I talked about earlier, seeing her character grow into her own self is something that I find refreshing every time I rewatch the series. Korra is not supposed to be the perfect hero or protagonist. She is supposed to be flawed. And there's nothing wrong with having a female protagonist be flawed. Rightly or wrongly, she can stand on her own 2 feet when it comes to business. The whole idea of what a female character should or shouldn't be also ties into real life. I don't know why authors in the year 2025 are still having to deal with the issue of figuring out how to write female characters. While we might think differently than our male counterpart, we have dreams and goals and aspirations just like anybody else, which really shouldn't be a controversial take. Girls and women aren't a monolith and we all aren't gonna think the same. How female characters are treated in a particular fandom also translates to how IRL ladies are treated in fandom spaces. And I kind of want to break down other female characters who have gone through similar, strife from fandoms. But that's all for today, folks. If you like topics of media literacy, and breaking down characters both on the artistic level and on the literary level, then you should consider leaving a like as well as subscribing to my channel. I also talk about these topics quite a lot on stream, both here on YouTube as well as on Twitch, twitch.tv/Isuna19. The main gist here is that while Korra definitely has a lot of flaws as a story and as a character, it's not inherently bad. And I think it's just another case of the internet being hypocritical and overly dramatic. When the new series comes out for Avatar, I'll likely watch it. After all, I'm curious to see the new direction that a series that I grew up with will take with the new Avatar. I'm trying to not let nostalgia blind me into thinking something is bad before I even see what it actually is first. But regardless, these are my thoughts, and I'm interested in hearing yours, so don't hesitate to leave those down below in the comments. And I'll see y'all on the next video. Peace.